Carter Walsh, and today I'm joined with
Ridley,
Maralder Fong.
and Andrew Bob.
and today we're going to be discussing whether it's possible or not for solar energy to overtake fossil fuels in the energy race. Next slide. According to Yasser Alaman, fossil fuels are running out of supply quick due to overuse, and we're going to need to pivot from using them in the near future anyways due to their environmental costs, which include global warming and ecosystem degradation. Now, this is where solar energy comes in. It's a new and renewable form of energy that can be easily implemented into our current society, whether that's on the roofs or walls of houses or office buildings, or even the shade areas like we see here at the South Lawn Trophy. Now, why does only 4% of the United States use it as their preferred source of energy? Well, some scholars, like Daniel Wetko, believe that this is due to solar energy's failure to provide a stable source of energy due to its need for almost constant sunlight. And others, like Wahid Abd, believe that this is due to solar energy's need for a stable economy surrounding the units in order to support the units. Now, we could go about solving this issue in many ways. One way could be to provide government regulations for fossil fuels. That could look like raising the prices or making them less accessible, force citizens to find ways to use more renewable sources of energy, like solar energy. Or we could advocate for more research efforts in solar energy due to solar's great capacity for improvement in the research sector. Now, both of these solutions have many pros and cons, which will be discussed in this presentation. Next slide.
One potential solution to this problem would be to limit fossil fuel and non-renewable energy significantly in order to make solar energy a more viable alternative for many people. This can be done by increasing taxes on fossil fuels while simultaneously providing tax breaks, government subsidies, and lower usage costs on solar energy. In a 2022 peer-reviewed journal article, Ibrahim Al-Saidan and other authors wrote that, quote, "The removal of unsustainable resource use will play an important role in the exploitation of renewable energy in general and solar energy-based technologies in particular, which would provide a reliable, eco-friendly, and sustainable solution for our future demands." End quote. This explains that there is a chance to limit the use of resources that are harmful to the environment, and it illustrates the numerous benefits that this will have. Similarly, T.V. Ramachandra is an author with a PhD in ecology and energy from the Indian Institute of Science, and his peer-reviewed article from 2005 states that, quote, "Renewable energy technologies are clean sources of energy that have a much lower environmental impact than conventional energy technologies. Solar energy is one such renewable energy." End quote. Additionally, this will provide a long-term solution that can support humans for years, rather than a non-renewable method that will not be viable for much longer. However, there are some drawbacks to this solution. With the current amount of common usage, low cost, and high efficiency of fossil fuels, many people would find it unnecessary or inconvenient to transition to solar energy. This is especially true for those who only look for the short-term benefits that fossil fuels provide, rather than the long-term harms that they will have in the future. Also, solar energy is currently less efficient due to a lack of research and investment. LASG quantifies that the effectiveness of solar panels can reach between 15 to 20%, whereas coal can reach 40% efficiency and natural gas can reach 60% efficiency. This means that fossil fuels are have significantly higher productions for energy. This can change, however, as solar energy research is becoming more common.
As Niall previously said, Solution 2 will invest into the research of solar energy. According to Philip Dave, an associate professor at the University of Luxembourg, some of the most researched modules converted about 46% of the incoming light, while the commercial models only converted about 22% of the incoming light. Overall, it can be inferred that research definitely led to a better performance within these modules. Moreover, theoretical calculations by Philip Dave show that this number could rise up to 70% in the coming years. And though Solution 1 relies on government subsidies, research that is being invested right now is happening and action is being taken now. It seems more sensible to push with research on these modules to increase performance and how much solar energy that these modules can intake. Next slide. According to research done by Carla Chalmers, solar energy has very high initial costs. So, research will take action immediately. However, new discoveries may not be put into houses and buildings immediately. For example, consumers may stick to a short-term, cheap, and reliable energy source that we call fossil fuel, like Niall said earlier, instead of waiting for the most sustainable option to be improved by research. People may fade away from solar energy because of its high initial cost and the space that it may take, However, they should allow for research and discoveries to be made, and will instead go for the cheaper, reliable, and already understood energy source. Overall, we know that research does not always equal results. However, it is best to begin this research as soon as possible for those who will wait for the longer but more sustainable route regarding their energy. Next slide, please.
Conclusion. Some benefits of Solution 1 are that it makes room for solar energy and greatly benefits the environment. According to the World Resources Institute, quote, one way to reduce the use of fossil fuels is to eliminate fossil fuel subsidies and put a price on carbon, end quote. However, there are some troubles with reducing the use of fossil fuels. One is that we strongly rely on their use. It will be very hard to reduce their use because of how cheap and effective they are. According to the National Wildlife Federation, quote, the U.S. uses coal for more than half of its electricity needs. Additionally, America's transportation system is overwhelmingly dependent on conventional petroleum oil, which is responsible for 20% of our climate change pollution, end quote. However, Solution 2 looks far more promising. Increasing research into cheaper and more productive ways to use and produce solar energy allows for a faster change into cheaper, in transforming our society from becoming fully reliant on fossil fuels to more heavily reliant on more sustainable forms of energy such as solar. Even though there are some places that are unfit for solar energy, this solution seems far more promising than Solution 1. Next slide, please. In the end, we concluded that Solution 2 was in fact the best solution. Solution 2 is much more realistic than Solution 1 because we heavily rely on fossil fuels and be extremely hard to eliminate them in our society. According to Julia Kane, a graduate of Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, quote, across the country, solar has been expanding rapidly. The U.S. now has enough solar panels to generate 121.4 gigawatts of power, enough to power more than 23 million homes, end quote. It is much easier to look into better, more productive methods of producing solar energy, which would lead to us relying on fossil fuels less and on solar energy more. As more and more places around the world become interested in solar energy, we will improve it and may be able to make it into the dominant source of energy in the future. Thank you.
Terrific. Thanks, guys. I got a few questions for you, and then we'll wrap this up. Okay, I think we'll just go right along in order that you guys are standing. So Carter, you will answer the first question. So think about and reflect on your colleagues' work. So the work that all three of these guys did. Which one do you think had the greatest overall impact on the problem you identified? Which one of these guys' work do you think did that best?
Well, I would say that Niall's environmental lens had the biggest impact. He talked mainly about how fossil fuels affected the globe in an environmental way and caused things like global warming, which, as you saw in our problem slide, was the main problem we identified, and how solar energy is more renewable and doesn't affect the environment as more. So that's why that's Niall's.
Okay, terrific. Thanks. Niall, you'll be next. If you guys had a fifth team member, what lens do you think you would assign to them, and how do you think their input would have impacted your presentation here today?
Yeah, sure. So when we were going through our research, we definitely noticed that we had a lack of understanding of what would happen in the future of solar energy, so we would include someone with a futuristic lens. And they would be able to go in depth on how solar energy will replace fossil fuels and the process that we would go about doing that.
Terrific. Good, good. Okay, Murad, you're up next. Let's see. What's an example of a compelling argument from one of these guys' reports that never made it into the final presentation, and how come? Why was that argument excluded?
Yeah, so a very compelling argument that we excluded from our presentation was the paper belonging to Andrew Bach. Andrew had an argument that used a political and historical point of view, and besides the time limit that comes with the presentation, there were also many other reasons that he was excluded, mostly because the points derived from my report, Niall's, and Carter's were much easier to elaborate on, and political and historical just didn't fit in this presentation.
Okay, terrific. And then finally, Andrew, what is the way in which your team's resolution, so sort of the final argument you guys made about which one is better, that makes you think differently about the way that your research went?
I think overall, the presentation, It borrowed some points that were in my research, but the resolution didn't align with the solutions that I offered in my personal report. The conclusion was an eye-opening experience, as I never considered government regulations and pieces of legislation as a viable solution.
Okay, terrific.